Remote work is broken, and not for the reasons you think. I'm Greg Weinger, and this is the Powerful Introvert Podcast. My guest today is Stephen Puri, who's spent over 20 years in senior leadership, first in Hollywood at DreamWorks in the 20th Century Fox, then as a 3-time tech CEO. And what he's learned along the way flips a lot of common assumptions we have about workplace and productivity on their head. Today, Stephen runs the Sukha. It's an app and a community of more than 34,000 people who are exploring productivity and mindful work together. In this conversation, we're going to dig into why remote work can be a great advantage for introverts, the biggest myths leaders get wrong, and some of the personal systems that keep Stephen productive. Stephen, a real pleasure to have you on the podcast today.
What a generous and thoughtful introduction. I hope the rest of our time together is as helpful and entertaining for everyone listening.
All right, let's see if you can live up to your billing here. Stephen, there's no wrong answer here with my first question.
Square root of 43. I don't know.
No real wrong answer. Are you an introvert or an extrovert?
I'll tell you this, and I'm going to illustrate it with the story because, as you know, I love story. I have developed behaviors that are associated with extroverts because of the things I wanted to accomplish in work. I also know that some of the most popular definitions or litmus tests for introversion versus extroversion, I fall on the introverted side. I'll give you an example. I am doing this podcast with you, and I know there's certain public things that I do to share the messages around flow states, around work. They require a certain thing, but it actually does not charge me up as much. The time that I spend, working alone, thoughtfully, designing things, those are the ones that actually bring me the greatest energy. And I went to USC. I was raised in Northern Virginia. I was the son of 2 engineers. I loved to read alone. One of my happiest things was going to the public library with my younger brother and my mom. We would each carry out books in our arms that would fit underneath our chin. So we'd extend our arms, and that was how much we could take. And I would go home and read for hours and days at a time. I loved it. When I went to USC, I remember walking into the cafeteria at EVK, the one in my complex, as a freshman, and looking around and having this feeling like everyone here went to high school together. I feel like everyone went to Pali High or Venice High or Malibu or whatever. And I was this kid from Virginia. And I thought to myself, if I don't develop a way of going to sit at a table with people I don't know, I will end up going to my room and repeating that process, eating lunch alone, and I will eventually die. I took my little tray and I just sat down at a table with people I didn't know. I was like, hi, my name's Stephen. And that was the beginning of learning behaviors that allowed me to work in film, which is a very collaborative business, and work in tech. But I do find the most joy in, the most energy in the things I do alone. It's usually writing blog posts, working on our website, doing some engineering. Right or wrong answer? You're like, that was the only wrong answer, Stephen.
No, that's great. You have such a engaging personality, and it very much reads as an extrovert just on the surface. And So I love that answer. I love that you're sharing that and your background and how you developed that, because we all have to make our way in the world. I probably experienced some of those same kids at Stanford, folks going to Pali High, and similar experiences. Like, you got to fit in, you got to meet people, and you develop these skills, which are maybe not inherent to your personality. They're not completely natural to you.
Yeah. And I think, if you are a leopard or whatever on the Serengeti, there's not really an affordance to be like, oh, well, I'm going to be the quiet leopard that doesn't hunt. It's like, okay, I need to survive, even if it feels weird. I need to develop this behavior, even though maybe the most beautiful moments I have are sitting on a rock in the sun, looking out across, the plains.
Excellent. And you gotta eat antelope.
Yeah, with the right seasoning, quite good.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I live in Texas. We barbecue lots of things here, Greg.
Probably antelope among them.
I'm just saying.
Yeah. Okay. So you're an introvert in Hollywood, and you're developing your skills to survive there. But how do you survive so long in Hollywood when you're such a nice guy?
What a lovely question. I haven't gotten that question before. Let me say a couple of things. I think that had you met me in my film career, there was definitely a toughness and a sense of scarcity in that there are only so many movies that will get made. There are only so many release slots in any studio because this movies cost a lot of money. There's only so many consumer dollars. So in that sense of I'm working in an industry of scarcity, I was much more cutthroat, right? I would like to believe that as I've become more considered in my actions, as I've seen how the world has evolved, that I do understand that every day we vote. Voting is not what happens every 4 years in November. The world that we create is created by those daily votes. It is how you treat the woman at the dry cleaners that affects her day and how she's going to treat someone else. It is how you drive your car against other people who are maybe competing to get to the same place that you are as quickly as you are. And that occurred to me later in my career, and it influences me very much. And I'm having a son in 8 weeks. It is definitely something I hope that I can imbue in our household, the sense of like all of the little things you do every day are votes for the kind of world you want to live in. So think about them.
And so some of this is maturity.
We all... And hard knocks and having failures where you're like, oh, I'm not as smart as I thought I am.
Yeah, I'm curious, is there anything else that led to some of these realizations? Because really you're talking about moving from this mindset of scarcity to generosity and really, in a way, giving in the world. Anything else kind of sparked that transformation?
Yeah, I will tell you, I had a lot of ego caught up in how smart I was. And I realized that the smartness didn't necessarily mean that I was being healthy towards others or that I was going to succeed. I was always told I was smart. I got accepted to USC when I was 14. So everyone's telling you, oh my God, like, wow, you're this little genius come out of here. And I had been on the cover of USA Today, stuff like that. It was just like, wow, there's a lot of positivity. Define your identity through this. USC was very generous. They paid me to go to school there because they figured, oh, you're going to be successful, so be one of us. So to answer your question, there came a moment later in my career where I realized I'd had some failures now. I'd been fired from a job in the middle of my film career. Luckily, I recovered from that and things went well. But that was definitely like, oh, wow, that could happen. And then after I left film, I had a failed startup. My second startup did not work as well as the first, right? And I thought I was really smart. And some of those really gave me that pause of like, I should not discount how lucky I've been. Yes, I'm relatively smart and I've worked hard, but there is a huge factor of luck, the generosity of others that has propelled me forward. And that has made me much more sensitive to what am I putting back into the world?
Yeah, well, definitely give you a lot of credit for going into that self-reflection and to evolving that way. I want to ask you a little bit about some of your leadership experiences. And so you had teams that you led in Hollywood and then as a tech leader. So what are some of the most important things you learned there?
Well, here's something, because you led off by talking about, remote work. And let's just say there's a spectrum of remote, hybrid, in office. So one of the things that I think a lot of people don't realize is that film for 100 years has had remote, hybrid, and in office, if you will, right? Most verticals, there was a shock to the system in the pandemic. It was like, oh my God, we can't be under the same fluorescent lights 10 hours a day, 5 days a week. We'll kill each other, right? So it was like Zoom became a verb. How could we do this or distributed work? Here's the deal. I worked in film for over 10 years. Every film begins remote with writers writing in their homes, writing in coffee shops, writing in their writing partners' living rooms, right? At a certain point, hopefully one of those projects catches a little wind, you get some money, you open a production office. 2 days a week, you're all in the production office talking with costumers. What should they wear? Talking with location scouts. Where could we shoot this? What are the tax breaks like in Georgia, And then you go from that hybrid period into in office. You're on set all day and all night, 4 months at a time together. Then you go back to working hybrid with picture editors and sound editors and stuff working, and then you're eventually remote again. But if you were in film and you said, well, we're in the remote phase of this film, people would be like, huh? What is Puri talking about? Because there, the words have always been, development, pre-production, prep, post-production, things like that, which express those things. And what's interesting about that, the reason I bring it up is that leaders know how to lead through each of those phases and individual contributors know how to contribute, because it was not a new thing in 2021 about like, how the heck is this working? It was just like, this is what we do, this is how we do it. So one of the things that I learned from that, because that contrast with tech, which was very much when I went back into engineering and tech, that was very much hey man, we're all together in this office in Soma, in South Park, Dog Patch, wherever, doing our thing together. And I know you know SF. Those are SF references, just to let Greg know that he knows. So
And you all.
and y'all, whoever's listening is like, yeah, I'm on my little one wheel right now in Soma. So that said, the sense of, okay, how do we make this work in a business where it has not been endemic to the business? You do, as a leader, need to recognize some of the fear around remote work and are you working and productivity, things like that. That is actually born of hiring, because great leaders do two things, among other things like raising money and stuff like that. But great leaders go, here's the mission. And they can articulate, we're here to cure cancer, kids. We're here to go to the moon. We're here to invent cold fusion. We're here to, make the best romantic comedies we can, whatever. The second thing they do is they express the values of the culture. This is how we're going to treat each other. This is how we're going to treat our customers. This is how we're going to treat our competitors. Now, if you do those things well and you say, here's why we're here and here's how we're going to operate, you will attract the right people to that company. You have to then make sure that they're in alignment with those two. If you do that, like if I'm setting out to cure cancer, I'm like, Greg, you got to come aboard this thing. And you're like, Stephen, like my dad died of lung cancer. Like, let's do this. I don't need to watch you in your cubicle all day long to wonder, is Greg working? Is he at the dry cleaners? Did he take the day off? I'm like, no, man, Greg's invested in this mission. Wherever he may be, he's going to walk into the staff meeting tomorrow and say the thing where people are like, shit, we should do what Greg just said. That's a great idea. And you start to dissociate as a leader impact of someone's action from where they did it and how long it took them. So to extend that analogy or that example, if you walked into the staff meeting tomorrow, Greg, and you're like, actually, I had a breakthrough in how I think mitochondria are affecting this. And someone said, how'd you come up with this? You're like, oh, I was at the beach with my dog yesterday. And it just occurred to me. Some people would be like, you were at the beach on a Tuesday? What? But I think the correct response is, fantastic, dude. Like however you get your mind to that place of doing the stuff that changes the trajectory of our company, do it. And if that is, hey, I'd really love us all to be in the office and brainstorm this together around a whiteboard on Friday. Hey, because I recognize that kind of activity is better in person, then do it. These are all colors on our palette with which we can paint. It is not that you have to be a remote person and that is your personality, that is your view of the world. It is rather, these are all different tools. So that's a lot how I carried that experience from film, seeing those different ways of working into, what we do now, which is I run a tech company. Long answer. Sorry, man, you asked.
Oh, yeah. You exceeded my expectations there, truly, because, so one, we all have this idea of TV or film as like, you're just filming. That's what it is. But like nobody sees what you see.
You've
like
seen
all
the behind the scenes footage of like, standing around video village, like pointing at monitors. Do you know how those are staged? Like none of those unit photographer photos are like really candid. It's like, hey, listen, between takes, staged. Greg, could you go get the DP and stand here? And could one of you point at the monitor for me? Okay, great, thanks. That's how that works.
But the other thing is like a really deep and nuanced answer to why it is an advantage to trust your people. Because not only does it validate people and actually encourages them to give more to you, you're really freeing them to do their best work. You're allowing them to, in their own way, it's going to be individual. It's going to look really different for every single person. Where am I going to get the idea that's like the $100,000, the $1 million idea? It's not going to be sitting at a cubicle under fluorescent light. For me, it's never going to happen, and probably for most people. So how do you structure your day to be optimally productive and access that creativity?
Can I hang a lantern on something you just said? You said the phrase, I have an idea, right? Now, we're recording this in 2025. I'm sure thousands of years from now, people will find this, aliens will be unearthing this and wondering, what was it like in 2025? There is a great amount of consternation around AI, right? AI in the workplace. It is true. Every CEO knows it is incumbent upon them on their earnings calls to talk about how many jobs they have cut using AI. And this is how it's affecting their bottom line, including all the ones who are like, it's just a big ohana here. We're all a family. Oh, I need to cut 10,000 of you this week. It's like, we're getting rid of all our cousins and our second cousins, right? Okay, ohana guy, right? Ignoring that hypocrisy. Coming back to this AI is usually used right now in a way that conflates LLMs, large language models, with AI and how they're affecting the workplace. And I'd like to talk about that thing you said of having an idea. So the fear of, oh, my job is being replaced and I'm going to be made obsolete. LLMs, to be very reductive, are Google autocomplete on steroids. They are a prediction engine of saying like, hey man, you know what? Most of the time when someone like Greg says, today it looks, the next word they're looking for is a weather word. Rainy, sunny, Let's try one of them and see if Greg goes, yeah, I was going to write rainy. This is amazing. You're thinking. And it's using statistics and, advanced math to sort of do autocomplete, just like Google has done for years, right? It does it with ideas, not just characters. So that said, yeah, man, AI LLMs are going to wipe out a huge number of human jobs that do that kind of rote work, which brings us to what you just said, which is have an idea. Let us aim to have the jobs that are not replaceable by, well, autocomplete. I need to write copy for our 17th ad we're running on Facebook Marketplace, whatever this week. And I'll just have the LLM come up with a different version of the same stuff we've been writing, right? That great idea, hopefully, is what you become enabled to do because some of those other things are not as necessary. Let's hope that's where we're going, which is not just like putting people in Wall-E spaceships where they're fed gunk, and they have no lives, but actually doing more interesting work.
And for the people that may not be familiar with LLM, large language model, it's basically what ChatGPT or Google Gemini, when you're talking to them, that's the technology behind it that's powering the intelligent and interesting answers that it gives you, but not truly creative ideas, to your point.
Yes. So where does that leave us, Greg? Where shall we go from here?
Yeah. Now that we've solved that, community building. Is the Sukha the first community-based company that you've run, or where did that start?
No. I actually, when I left Fox, and Fox was one of my worst jobs in my life, not just in film, just like horrible values mismatch. And I was like, this is not what I want to be doing when I'm 40, 50, 60 years old, cranking out Die Hard 19 in the retirement home kind of stuff. And to the credit of News Corp, who was, running at the time, and the guys, my boss was the chairman of Fox Filmed Entertainment, like, it's called show business. It's not called show art. It's called show business. You can model how much Die Hard 5 would make. Doesn't matter if it's good or bad. Okay. So you do that, right? So I was like, okay. So I'd like to do something where I wake up in the morning, I'm excited to get up, as opposed to, oh, the alarm's going off, I guess I have to get up. And I thought, what is the only other thing I know how to do? And it's engineering. Okay, why don't we create a startup, find a problem that I think could be solved with some sort of engineering and design, and do that. So the first thing I went to do was with a buddy who was deep into social media, more than I was, said, okay, there's this new app coming up, Instagram, it's becoming really popular. And that sense of a selfie was becoming very popular. And I thought, it feels very selfish. Like the very word and concept of selfie is like me shouting at you, like, here's me at the beach, here's me at the concert, here's me. And it's a very it felt selfish to me. And I thought, why not have it where you could send me a selfie like, hey, I'm at the Spinal Tap concert, which I know you were at, which was amazing, right? And when I saw that, I could tap it and your selfie would flip over and I could share back to you. Oh, I was there last night. Here's a photo of me and Laura at the concert. And that sense of starting a conversation with photos. So we started developing that. We got to about 60,000 monthly actives. And Snapchat did Snap Stories, which, I'll just be blunt, was a better user experience than what we had. They beat us completely fairly. I was crushed because I was like, there's something about this sense of like we together that is more organic to who I am. And I wonder if other people will be into that. And small bands started using this. So it was cool seeing them with their fans where the band would post a photo of like them backstage at whatever concert last night. And then other people in the audience could tap that and share back to the band photos of them at the concert, and the band could see them. They're all collected in a nice way. But you know what? Raised $3 million, lost all of it, including $750,000 of my own money. And that was a really harsh experiment of like, okay, distribution is actually more important than the idea. Mm-hmm. And Snap had distribution. So when they said, oh, we can do that, they crushed us. fairly. I mean, I'm not unclear on why it happened, but it was just,
Yeah.
that was my first attempt at doing something community oriented, and
When
it
you
was
say
ego crushing.
distribution, they already had an audience.
They were in market.
So they could just release a feature and crush your app.
Exactly correct. Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. They had a huge audience to go, hey, we're rolling out Snapchat stories. And I remember I was with my girlfriend at the time. We were at some reunion for something in Florida. And I remember in the hotel room when it came out that day, and she was at Bessemer Venture Partners at the time. And maybe she'd gotten it early that morning, or someone had like tipped her off, like, you got to go look at this. And we looked at it in bed, and she's like, your company's over. And I was like, I don't want to say yes, but I understand what you're saying. And that was a hard reunion to be like upbeat at the same time. I was like, wow. So
yeah, that's a tough moment to talk about life experiences that really show you how do you want to be in the world.
Yes. So I think there have been some hard knocks that have humbled me. And maybe that's why you said the nice thing at the beginning of this, which is I'm trying to do something, inject some good into the world that my kids are going to inherit.
Yeah. Well, clearly you are. And I think maybe that's a segue to talk about the Sukha.
I love talking about the Sukha. It's my first child. I'm about to have my second one.
Yeah.
What would you like to know? What would your audience like to know?
Well, where'd you get the idea? And then what has it evolved into?
So the idea began, a buddy of mine who is an engineer at Groupon said, I really want to make a to-do list app. Would you help me? And I said, no, I don't want to co-found that with you because I don't have a brilliant idea. There's not something where I'm like, oh, this is how it should be done. I said, I've used so many for a month or two and then just abandoned them. But I did end up helping him in sort of a friendly capacity for a while. And then he had a baby. And he's like, I got to tap out. I want to go be with my baby. I'm going to go get a normal job, not do a startup. And I said to him, listen, I actually, in the course of working on this with you, have done a lot of research into like flow states and, remote work, and, the pandemic had happened. And I said, I have an idea. I'd love to buy the code base as a starting point and adapt this into my own company. And he's super cool. He's like, go for it. So I did that. And we ended up throwing out the original code bases. You often do. Every engineering project is a thing of like saying, okay, we just need to line one rewrite and start from scratch because now we have a different kind of idea. But it was really helpful springboard to have seen that. And so the end of the answer to your question is this. In the course of working on that and learning about flow states, I realized that I had experienced that, but I didn't know what it was. And just to set the table for those who are playing at home or driving the car, whatever, they're like, I've heard the term, I sort of get it, but maybe you could be more clear. There's a Hungarian-American psychologist, Hai Csikszentmihalyi, who had a strong thesis. He said, high performers in these different disciplines, artists, athletes, scientists, inventors, they seem to describe these concentrated states they go into where they do like the thing that makes them famous, the thing, that changes the world. They describe it in such similar ways. There's something there. So like Prometheus, he wanted to go up, to Mount Olympus, get fire, bring it down to the rest of us. So he studied them. And at the end of his research, he wrote the book Flow, the seminal work on this thing that he found. And that is from whence we get the term flow state. And I think it's so great what he said. He said, I chose this title because it was the most beautiful metaphor for what I found, which is we're all on the water paddling to move ourselves forward. But if you align your boat with the river, the current carries you forward. It magnifies your efforts. And I thought to a time I had been, I was here in Austin and I was flying to SF. And I was on, I think that Alaska operates the nonstop from here. And the Wi-Fi was broken. Got on the flight. We took off. We landed like 15 minutes later. And I thought an engine fell off. Like something really bad has happened. We're in Dallas and they're about to tell us once we safely land, like, oh, and by the way, there's no left engine, so please don't be nervous, right? And when I looked down and we were on the ground, 2 hours and 40 minutes had gone by. We were in San Francisco. I had no concept of time. I couldn't even tell you if like the drink cart came by, but my designs were done. And I liked them because I wanted to show my team the next day, like, here's an idea of something we can build. And I was able to call a buddy of mine and be like, hey man, I thought I'd be at the hotel room scrambling to finish these designs tonight, but I'm not. I have a free night. You want to have dinner? And it was a really nice experience of feeling like I was competent at what I was doing. I was in control of my work, not controlled by it. And in hindsight, when I did this research, I was like, oh, wow, that was my first experience of a flow state, which people know by many terms, being in the zone, the genius zone. Tons of smart people have written about this, right? So we now stand on the shoulders of giants around how do you get into that thing where in 2 or 3 hours, you can do like a day's worth of deep work. And that is really the genesis for the Sukha company, my company, which was, how do we make this available to anyone who has the intention of doing it? I have something to do. It could take me 3 or 4 hours, or I could do it in 1 or 2. I choose 1 or 2. That's what I do.
That's great. So that's the kernel of the idea. And so the app has tools to help you manage or set up the circumstances for yourself so you can more regularly enter those states.
Bingo. And Mihai wrote a bunch about this. He said, some of the characteristics of a flow state are you lose track of time. Check. I remember that from the Alaska flight. Distractions just fall to the wayside. Like you're not thinking about, oh, should I be checking my WhatsApps or look at a YouTube video, whatever. He said, there are conditions precedent that help you get there. He's like, I've noticed, number one, you have to believe what you're doing is meaningful. No one seems to be getting into a flow state like stapling papers or shuffling emails around their inbox or something, right? Mm-hmm. You have to have skills that apply. I love this quote, the Michael Jordan quote about like, when I'm in the zone, it's just me and the ball, which is a great, very succinct way of saying like all that, the stands and the scoreboard, everything falls away. It's just me and the ball. And he's doing something where he has skills that apply. Like he's not saying, oh, when I paint, I'm in the zone. No, or playing basketball or baseball, whatever. Mm-hmm. And you have to be operating at a level that challenges you. You have to actually be trying to do something great, not like half-assing it. And there are other ones this is not a 4-hour podcast. I'll be somewhat succinct, but he wrote about there are these things that help you do this. And subsequent research has shown like music seems to be a great way to fall into a flow state faster and stay there longer. A lot of the research shows for most people, 60 to 90 beats per minute, certain key signatures, ambient, non-vocal kind of rhythmic music. So it can be lo-fi, it can be upbeat, down tempo, but sort of in that zone. When we were developing Sukha, I happen to have a bunch of friends that are film composers with time on their hands, right? So it's like, hey, Greg, could you write me, I don't know, a bunch of hours of this kind of music? And, we have like 1,000 hours of different playlists that are oriented around that. And I'll tell you something I discovered in doing this. There's a buddy who is up in Marin near, where Lucasfilm is, LucasArts and stuff, like San Rafael area, who's an audio engineer on the games, the Lucasfilm games. I think it was his son's high school graduation present they were going to Nepal. He came back and he said, Stephen, one of the days I was there was this amazing rain. Like it poured, it was this lush sort of rain. I had some of my audio equipment, so I recorded it. Do you want it? And I was like, sure, it's free. Why not? Right? So we threw up a playlist. There was not music. It was the sound of rain in the Himalayas. We called it Himalayan Dream Rain. It's now our 3rd most popular playlist. Just listen to this beautiful rain. And that inspired us to say, oh, wow, some people don't seek music for their flow state. So we did recording with Stream in Japan, like surf in Cyprus, Emerald Lake with the little birds tweeting in Canada, which is close to where my partner Tony lives. Bunches like that. Coffee shop in Vienna. Some people really loved like the sound of a coffee shop without the distraction of it. Things like that. Anyway, back to you.
Yeah, that's taking me back to, as a kid, I first heard there was, I think it was called Elements. So you could buy a CD of sounds, and it was a revelation to me. It was sold on the Sharper Image catalog or something like that. I just thought it was the coolest thing in the world.
I have a question for you. What distracts you when you are trying to focus or get into a flow state? What are the things that pull you out?
I would say the reasons why I don't get into the flow state are primarily scheduling. I will be in a job where there's not time blocks available to reliably go into flow state. So I have to schedule time outside of it. I get up very early in the morning, or like you said, you tick off, I'm going to go take a walk. It's not in the regimented office where this is even possible. And this is like another key here. If you're worried about your job, being stolen by AI, then if you're not setting up the circumstances, you're not going to be able to produce the ideas that are going to be unique and valuable. They're going to be this like checking the email. It's going to be creating the 17th version of the email or the Die Hard 19 or 36. And LLMs are probably really great at that.
Yes. Very true. But let me dig into that a little deeper. I hear you on the scheduling thing, which is hard to then plan flow. But what are the distractions that get you when you do have that time or you try to get into flow? What are the things that pull you out? I'll be honest, I'll be vulnerable. TikTok knows me extremely well. And for some reason, more than Facebook or Instagram or X or Twitter, TikTok's the one that just gives me that weird dopamine. That's a hard thing. When I run into something difficult, like I'm coding and the build keeps failing, I notice my hand just reach for TikTok to go, I'll just do this for a minute or two, which becomes 30. And it's the instant dopamine hit. Same thing if I run into a blog post where I'm like, the muses are not singing. That and YouTube are really tough for me. I have to smack my hand virtually. Are there things like that for you?
Sure. During the day, it's more work related. It'll be a Slack. I mean, there's always some email or some thread where somebody needs something and I can get a little dopamine hit by answering someone's question or helping somebody out instead of getting the thing that I really need to be doing done.
Yep. With you on that.
Yeah. And I'd, be dishonest if I didn't say sometimes I flip over in the social media channel or something like that. Just
I follow your only
news
fans.
hit.
I know.
Yes. Well, I can't help what I got.
Bitcoin is Bitcoin, man.
Yes. Let's bring this back around to supporting introverts. Is there anything special about remote work that is an advantage for an introvert, or getting into deep work that is an advantage for an introvert?
That is such a generous question, because I think implicit in the question, you know the answer. Let me make it more explicit, which is in that story I told you about the lunchroom at USC, my freshman orientation week, this sense of, okay, part of my life is going to be more successful if I learn how to interact with others. There's a reward for networking, things like that. Matter of fact, you did a great episode with that Marine, I think it was. Is it like a Desert Storm veteran, if I recall?
Yeah. That's
I can't remember his name.
Yeah.
But you talked, and I think
thank
you. Yes. So there is a reward in terms of your career advancement that comes from networking. And he hung a lantern on that. So in that story, what I was saying to myself is, if I'm going to have the rewards of my school and my career when I'm moving forward, I need to develop a behavior where I can go sit at a table with people I don't know and go, hey, my name's Steve. What's your name? Oh, Greg, nice to meet you. Where are you from? So when you ask about how remote work can be powerful for introverts, I'll tell you this. Yes, there are some industries more than others that reward networking. Like, for example, I come from Washington, D.C. area. It is absolutely a city where the currency is access. The currency is not money. The currency is access. If you every day have breakfast with the chief of staff of the White House, you might be impoverished, but you have power, right? Whereas in New York, the currency is currency. Like it is, hey man, I'm an iBanker, I'm a Wall Street guy. Like the currency of New York is money. The currency of San Francisco is your intelligence. Like you can be at some party and like the guy in the corner who just rewrote the new Google search algorithm could be like staring at a plant, but he's the coolest guy at the party because he's moved that industry forward, right? Mm-hmm. And of course, living in LA, the currency of LA is appearance, right? So when you think about what it is that's powerful about remote work for introverts, there is an element of, hey man, if I manage my brain well here at home, I block the time, I do the thing that moves my world forward, that can be a very great career accelerant where at the same time, some people are out there moving their career forward by networking. Hey man, every night of the week, I'm at some dinner, some cocktail party, I'm going to every conference, absolutely powerful for some people, but maybe not for an introvert. Like I had to do a lot of conventions and conferences and stuff when I was in film because it's a networking kind of business, right? But man, I would much rather be working with a writer one-on-one in our home, crafting something great where it's undeniable. You read and you go, whoever wrote this, call them in here right now. We need to have a meeting at the studio with this writer, right? Which is different than I met these really fun guys at the party last night after the premiere. Whoa, so we should, like, where do those go? Those are just networking kind of things. That's the power, I think, of remote work for introverts is great. Use the thing that is true of you to your greatest advantage. Do great work. And that's why I created my company. It is about, hey, if you want to be in control of your life, if you want to be controlling your life as opposed to controlled by it, find those pockets of time and use whatever accelerant works for you, which does not have to be the Sukha company. It can be whatever app or what system you work with, paper and pencil. But find those tools so your rocket fuel is that time when I do the work that causes the world to turn its head.
That's great. And part of what I do is encourage people to take advantage of your skills and where are you most happy and productive. My current situation is kind of an ideal for me. I get to go into an office 1 to 2 days a week, spend time with people, whiteboards, just have that connection. And the rest of the time I'm in my home where I'm just more comfortable. I'm able to walk my dog in the middle of the day if I want to. It's very energizing. It's something that just works better for me. Yeah, if it's possible, if you can seek it out, this remote or even a hybrid, if you can get it, is a great fit, I think, for introverts.
It is true. And when you do need to engage, as I recall, one of your recent episodes, you spoke with that Korean woman who was talking about building outward in, dress a certain way, and you'll start to feel, embody the thing that you're dressing as. And she had a really smart comment, and I hope I quote her properly. She was talking about if you work in marketing, there is a huge part of how people are going to perceive your competence by how you dress, which is different than if you're like a software engineer when they're probably not going, oh, are those Jimmy Choo's or Christian Louboutin heels? You know, like you're a software engineer. Whereas that may be very important if you're a marketing exec. I thought that was really well observed on her part of just like how to play the game when you need to play the game, because sometimes you do. As an introvert?
Well, I think it's a game for software engineers because if you show up and like the smartest guy is probably wearing a t-shirt and shorts, and if you come in with a button down, they're going to look at you funny.
Yeah. Are you really a software engineer?
You're a manager. Can't be that smart if you're a manager. I was a software engineering manager. So.
Which I think would be kind of hilarious though, if you were a really good software engineer and you were the guy who came in like a suit and they're like, I know. Greg, the guy in the corner of the suit, he's actually not our boss. Software engineer. It'll be really funny.
Kick-ass software engineer. Yeah, you'd definitely be bucking the trend if you do that.
Yeah, little things that make people smile. There's so many opportunities during the day to break little patterns where people get a little smile out of it. Like if you ever get in an elevator and there are 5 people in the elevator, it's sort of a tacit rule. The 6th person has to stand right in the middle facing the doors, right? But if you ever walk in the elevator and just stand facing inward, everyone sort of like starts giggling and like not knowing where to stand and where to look. And it's like the simplest little thing, but it sort of says to everyone like, do you realize there's this unwritten rule that no one ever taught you, but you all know what it is, which is like, I'm supposed to stand watching the numbers and staring at the door. Costs you nothing, but everyone that day is like, I had the funniest ride in the elevator day with this dude.
That's great. Thank you. That's one thing that you can take away into your day and have fun with it.
That's not the only one from this podcast, but okay.
No. All right. Well, are there any others that come to mind?
Yeah. If there were one really big one, it is start your day with your intention. Like every morning, even if you have to write it on an index card or post it and stick it on your laptop screen or something, like start from there, because your day will not move you forward if you just are doing the shallow work that comes at you. So that would be probably more important than the elevator joke, but the elevator joke's pretty good. But I go with the intention one if there's one takeaway.
And just to dig into that one a little bit more, what does that do?
It should, if you are true to your intention, you say, today, the thing that will move me forward is I need to, revise my website to express what it is I do now, right? And focus on it. It's going to change the trajectory of your life, and you have to want that. If you're caught up in self-sabotage or you actually don't want success, you have fear of success, like that's going to be hard. But if you're like, no, actually, like my family will benefit if I can get to this next level, then each morning, just be clear, what's the thing you could do today that moves it forward? And you'll do the stupid shallow work of returning the emails, like you're saying, get a little dopamine hit from the Slack message where you help someone. But the Slack message is not the thing that's going to move your family into a place of security or it's going to pay for your kids' college. It's doing that thing where suddenly you're at a conference talking about how you came up with the idea for blah.
Absolutely. Stephen, you've been really so generous with your time, and this has really been a lot of fun. If people want to have more fun or just learn more about your work, where can they go?
Get in the elevator with me around 3:00. It's going to be super fun. I have some board games we're going to play. No, I joke. There are 2 answers to that question. Number 1, anything to which I have made reference where someone wants to know more, like what was that thing about Cal Newport, or what was that thing about the Hungarian dude, or my email address is very public. It is Stephen at the Sukha, TheSukha.co for company. You're welcome to drop me an email and go, hey man, can you send me something on that? It doesn't have to be about my company. I'll send you back a link. I will not write you back 19 paragraphs, story of my life. I don't have time, nor do you want to read it. And I get back to all my emails in 24 hours if I'm not sick or traveling. So that is an offer. Anyone who wants to get better, there's that. If someone wants to try the tool that we built, it's a flow state website. It's free for 7 days, no credit card. If you love it, then yeah, you can pay us and help us pay the server bills. And it is shockingly at the Sukha, TheSukha.co. If you try it, come with something you need to do. It's a flow state app. So think of something you have 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours to work on. Hit play. You can hook up, you can download a free Chrome extension, helps you stay off websites. You can lock your phone, helps you stay off your phone, and just see how you feel after that hour, 2 hours. And let me know. If there are things you want that are better, email me. If you have criticisms, email me. That's how we make it better.
All right. Thanks so much, Stephen.
This
really
is great.
glad to have
Thanks
you
for
on
having
the
me
podcast
on.
today.